thank you, everybody, for coming to our panel today. We very much appreciate the turnout.
Frankly, we're shocked every time people show up.
So
it's why we keep doing it.
Yes. So I am Jordan.
I'm Corey.
We've been doing this
for a while now.
Yes. I mean, you've been DMing for about...
I've been DMing for about 20 years, a little shy.
And I've been going on for 10, because he's the one that broke me into this. And today we're talking about character creation and how to not make a vicious murder hobo and like be maybe like a little bit interesting. But first, we have some housekeeping. We normally do panels about, like, you know, what happens when gaming groups go wrong, like how to make a good game, like
how to not lose your friends over an RPG, stuff like that.
So we want to at least front end some of this with some techniques, some tips, some good tools to like not have your game flame out and die in a terrible heat death. First of all, X is going to give it to you. This goes by many names. It was the X card. I wish I had the name of the person who, I guess, invented it, but it is a great technique. We are wrestling nerds, so we throw the X like a match has gone bad. Yeah. But the general concept of it is if you have introduced something to your game, either a character concept that you've made, like the DM brings something into the fold that anyone at the table finds uncomfortable, and they don't want in it, they get veto rights. And a beautiful quote that I heard about this was, there is no like plot hook, there is no character, nothing is cool enough to risk making someone at the table uncomfortable. At the end of the day, it is a group activity.
Yeah, and we always like to say, if everybody at the table isn't having fun, then something is wrong, because this is the reason why we hang out and do this. So yeah, this is just a way to like stop the action. In the original format with the X card, if somebody throws the X, you basically just drop what just happened, go back to the end of the previous scene, and play forward differently. You can tweak that to what is comfortable with your group.
And most importantly, there's no explanation needs to be given. Yeah. That is not like what that is about. Corey, you also have some feelings that you need to get off your chest.
So every time we do one of these panels, I give the same speech, because if my one legacy to the human race is that there are a few people out there who have the following statement burned to the inside of their eyelids, I will die a happy man. I'm gonna do a spicy take here. Your character isn't real. So try and keep in mind the following, and it kind of ties into our previous statement. Don't be an asshole to your real friends for the sake of your imaginary friends.
We've kind of seen too many of our groups fall apart. I should not get an applause. That makes me feel kind of sad.
I have two toxic table phrases that, as a GM, just make me put you in the crosshairs. And it's not always bad, but like I'm gonna get my hackles up if I hear the phrase "my character would" or "my character would not," because your character would or wouldn't anything, because your character is just an avatar. And like, if your character would like murder a random homeless person on the street, but like that would give somebody at the table, all right, no, I'm gonna be real here. I'm a DM most of the time. If that would just, for lack of a better phrasing, shit in my cereal, don't do it. Jordan ran a game once where, I'm not going to point any fingers at anybody, somebody was a psycho killer, and that was like, he had to try and figure out how to fit a serial killer into his plot line. And
he skipped town and left in 5 minutes into the game, and this is my very first chance of being a DM, I'm down a player, and I'm just going, I don't, because I didn't know, I thought I did something wrong. I didn't realize that dude was just a dickhead.
I had a game where, it was the early days, back when I only played D&D, and I had everybody really excited about this concept where we start off with regular D&D characters in a regular fantasy setting, and then they get hurtled through a portal into like alternate reality World War II. And everybody was really on board with the idea. And when, in the first session where I threw the story hook to get them to walk through the portal, I heard my favorite phrase, "My character wouldn't do that. She has no reason to go through that portal." And I'm like, you, the person, have a reason to go through that portal. Why does your character win this argument? But anyways, we can move on. Just remember, your character is not real, and
Don't be a dick.
don't be a dick.
Now, this seems like a misnomer. I just want to get this out there because, we are, we like to feel like we're high-minded, we're hoity-toity, we're kind of like pretentious, and I want to just lay this out before we start the panel in earnest, that we understand that D&D, a lot of people use it to just like drink beers, talk shit to their friends, and like beat the shit out of monsters to get that fat loot. I get that, and I understand that like people don't want to act like this shit's Shakespeare. I completely understand like that, like people, D&D's not that serious.
Yeah, and even there are some players who really love D&D, but they're not comfortable with RP, and I like to slowly nudge them into it over time and gaslight them until they love RP. But
it's worked about 87% of the time.
Yeah.
He's good at that shit.
But if there's somebody at your table who's really not in for like the heavy RP, the heavy backstory, which is going to be a lot of what we talk about today, that's totally fine. Because like we said before, it's our motto, like everybody should be having a good time.
And just try and get them to do it like a little bit though. Like just get a tiny bit. Because like once they open that door and they realize it's sick, the rest will come through.
Yeah.
So like why do we even make this fucking panel? Like, I want to just like put it out there. D&D, tabletop role-playing games, it's a beautiful thing because it is a collaborative storytelling medium. And your character as a player is really the only thing that you can fully control to influence the story. The rest of it is either up to the DM or the fate of the dice, or whatever resolution, Jenga, cards, whatever the resolution mechanic is. But there is basically luck, the DM, and what you make your character as. And like, I'm not like an author. Like, I don't write shit all that well. Like, I don't act. But because of the synergy of everybody working together, knowing who their character is, and me kind of tying the plot threads together to make something that I think is cool, you are able to create something that is greater than the sum of its parts of just a bunch of schlubby dudes like in my mom's basement making stories together. It can be great.
Yeah, and character backstories and the relationships between characters and NPCs and characters and other characters that develop in a game really give the game a lot more meat. And as we'll discuss later, it kind of helps everything kind of jive and flow together. So that's kind of why we wanted to talk about this.
Now, one thing, like, the biggest tool that we've started using and incorporating once we started to get into this for real is Session Zero. It is especially great because I know that a lot of people nowadays are actually DMing with people that they don't necessarily know all that well. Like our friend Calvin over here does a lot of Roll20 games with like dudes in California and Oregon that he doesn't necessarily know all that well. And even if it's doing with people that you are reasonably friends with, setting the base of like what you want the theme to be and like what people getting everything out on the table is a huge help to start everything.
And this is really where like character arcs and how to build a backstory and things like that really start. It can be even helpful to talk about relationships between characters after you have a concept, but before you start making the character, because you can kind of come out the other side with a more interesting character if the choices you make in building your character reflect relationships that you have with other characters or a little bit of history. I tend personally to not have any backstory the first 2 or 3 sessions, and I kind of build it as I go, unless I get hit by a lightning bolt of inspiration and I show up to the table with 12 pages of backstory. It happens because I was once running 3 games at a time. It's reached a point with me where if I'm not running a game, I get anxiety that I'm not running a game. So I get pretty thirsty for actual gameplay.
And also, Session Zero is great to avoid situations where, Corey might be running a hardcore horror game.
Oh yeah, this is a real story.
My friend Ethan, just coming back from Japan, really wants to, play with us. And course, I invite him. Corey's cool with it, and I might have neglected to tell him.
That it was a horror game or even a serious game.
So he comes with a dual-wielding, pistol-wielding nun that is addicted to Candy Crush, and that worked out.
An alcoholic.
Yeah, it worked out. It got mad creepy, but it's good to avoid those situations. Now, having said all that, when you're with people that kind of together, you mesh well, the random select option, getting a D12 and a D8, however many classes or races.
Different systems do it differently.
And
we started a D&D game where I was just going to run some modules and some old modules that I like. And all of the players, just independent of me, decided that they were going to roll for race and class. And that's how we got this absolutely beautiful group that I lovingly call the Virtue Boys.
We were we were kind of burnt out at that point.
There is one character that doesn't have divine magic or something like it in the party.
And it was funny because we were all burnt out at that time. We were playing the horror games of World of Darkness and stuff like that, and we were so ready to play some regular ass D&D.
Yeah.
That I hate writing shit. I'm gonna go back. That's gonna come up later on. I actually wrote him 2 pages of backstory. We were so ready for it.
Yeah.
Just because luckily I rolled a monk, so I'm about that life. But random select, having confines to start, any.
It also makes my job so easy that they're all these good boy characters, because anytime I introduce someone who's remotely dastardly or something that interferes with the natural order of life and death, triggers. Everybody's on that guy. We're gonna take care of this problem. It's so easy.
Now, after you get out of session 0, one thing I just wanted to get out is that we're all playing with our imaginary friends with some dice modifiers. So even the simple things trying out an accent or just getting out of your comfort zone. I am known for playing a big stoic badass tank because they're easy to create and I don't have to think too hard about spells and stuff. So I'm getting to that template, but breaking out of it, we're all nerds in our mom's basement, or our own basements for some of us who have actually got real people money.
My dining room, thank you very much.
I don't got that kind of money yet, bro. But even just going a little bit will pay big dividends for the entirety of the table.
Yeah, and it's something that you never have to stop doing, really. I mean, it was only very recently I played a character in one of Jordan's games where it's a hardcore, we're all Vikings living in a warrior society setting, and I played a character who is part of the religious cult, and she is completely forbidden from combat. And so I kind of have the fish out of water thing going with that character, and it's been a very fun experience actually to be useless and helpless every time a fight breaks out. So change things up every so often.
Now, the next part we're going into.
This is kind of the most important thing. D&D was my first love, and it will always have a very special place in my heart. But there are literally a million systems out there, and you guys should try as many of them as you can.
The big reason why we get into this particular part is because, especially as the years have gone on, and after it seems like we're in a big RPG boom now, where there's just people just making new systems upon systems upon systems
in any flavor you can imagine.
A thing that we've been noticing is that they've been kind of incorporating how to either create your character backstory or incentivizing doing cool roleplay stuff or character development into the rules of the story itself. It used to be in D&D, that shit was on you.
That was all your job.
And you could still make great stories with it because your brain is pretty cool at doing that kind of stuff sometimes. But having the carrot and the stick to guide people along to that.
It's really useful, and in the D&D game with the Virtue Boys, we have our lockpick and burglary specialist in the group is the paladin, because fifth edition is wild like that. So
and even 5e is doing it now.
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, there was never like backstory stuff in D&D like that before.
Not
that
really baked in, no. And yeah, so now you choose a backstory and it gives you cool benefits. And so now you have like an idea of how to play your character and where your character comes from. And also it gives you cool benefits, so you're willing to put the effort into it. There are other systems that go absolutely ballistic on this concept. And
that's kind of where the meat of the panel is. Now,
Yeah.
if anyone has been to one of our panels before, there is a common thing that we do where I am a huge pro wrestling nerd, so we make like a pro wrestling joke. I am dead serious about Worldwide Wrestling. It is one of my favorite RPGs of all time.
Yeah.
It's
the dumbest, most ignorant RPG you'll ever play, and basically the entire point of this game is character backstory and role play. Also, it's a powered by the Apocalypse game, so when I'm running it, I don't need dice, and I don't have to roll dice for any reason, which is just absolutely divine.
But because of the confines of pro wrestling, where every character is such a caricature of like to start with, and it's a pro wrestling match. What's going to happen is that they're going to fucking fight and talk about their feelings really loud in front of a microphone.
Yeah, and this book actually, the rules component of this book, as you can see, it's not very thick to begin with. The rules component of this book you can read in probably 10 minutes. I read them once and then ran a game. And I've read chunks of them over again, but I have not done a read through since then, and that was like 2 years ago. The rules are simple, they're effective. A lot of what's in this book is tips and pointers on how to build your character, but there are also several essays about how playing a wrestling RPG will make you a better role player. And I have witnessed this actually happen. I'm going to read an excerpt real fast. But their origins are unambiguous. They start with one simple, obvious hook to clue the audience in to exactly where their motivation lies. So we know precisely why the wrestler would subject themselves to the brutality of the ring. And we understand just what is at stake should they lose whatever match they build towards. They have a belt they want, vengeance they crave, respect they feel they deserve. Even those who wear masks and shroud themselves in mystery are uncomplicated. They have their mystery to protect. And that's kind of like, it's really cool what a lot of this system tells you about character creation, because in wrestling, one of the top rules is be obvious, because the audience isn't always going to be able to hear you. You don't have the spotlight for an extended period of time. You have to share it with somebody else. And one of the coolest things about this system is because it's done from the point of view of you're running an actual wrestling business, and your characters are real wrestlers who are playing their characters on a show. You're working together. You're in the middle of a feud with somebody, and you're in your championship match, and your character's motivations are always to make each other look good and do your job.
And we'll get into character interactions and how to play off characters other later on in this. But this system kind of puts it all to the forefront.
Yeah,
and it makes it easy because there's no it's pro wrestling. There's no winner. You can't win this shit. So it kind of forces people to work together to make cool character interactions.
And for those of you who haven't played a Powered by the Apocalypse system game, every single one of them uses the same core rules, and every single one of them has this baked-in idea of you establish links or relationships with the other characters before the game starts. And that's really important to me as someone who's run so many games where every player at the table in their own mind is the only person at the table. And I've literally witnessed this bizarre phenomenon of two people who are in the same game talking about their characters, and they are not having the same conversation. Where one of them's like, oh man, I was really excited when this happened to my character. And the other guy's like, yeah, my character did that. And it just goes back and forth like that. It's so me personally as a GM, I really want the characters to have investment in each other and care about each other. Because that's one of the few things that will actually combat the plague of, this. So
let's not get into this for right now. That is a panel for another day. Just if you see a dude with a cell phone at your table, I don't know, like get a rock salt gun and shoot that shit. Yeah, I don't know, like just get that out of here.
someday I'm gonna build my dream house, and the game room is going to be inside of a Faraday cage and have no power outlets.
Yeah. Now the next one, like, this was more Corey's hill to die on. Now, flaws are a very important part in creating any sort of character. I didn't really want to put any one like system to do that because like if you go to any generic RPG, GURPS, like Genesis, Fate, they will have a like carrot and stick of, yo, we'll give you some XP
or whatever
to make your character sad or make your character like dumb or make your character short or like, you know,
Yeah.
it will they will get like there's so many of them, almost any point buy system will give that to you.
Really, the first system to do this and do it well, as far as I know, is White Wolf, World of Darkness. World of Darkness is excellent for flaws because you build them into your character in so many ways. Or if you're playing a vampire, like everything about you is just flawed, and then you get extra flaws on top of your flaws. But one of the really cool things in World of Darkness is you can actually pick up and lose additional flaws during gameplay based on the terrible things that happen to you. Another system I really love that really incentivizes flaws in the way that Jordan mentioned, where it's at character creation and it just lets you buy more cool shit, is Legend of the Five Rings. And L5R, like, we played a lot of that game when I was in college, and we even found some flaw combos that makes your character completely unplayable. There's a flaw called Momoku, and it makes it so you can't spend void points. And if you can't spend void points, you're basically screwed. I don't know why they put it in the game, but it's kind of hilarious to watch from my side of the screen anyway.
and the reason why we put this up is that we'll get to it a little bit later, that no one wants to make, or like everyone wants to make a perfect, pristine character.
At least when they're new to role play.
Because it's a power fantasy at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And, you know, a good way to get people to actually like dirty themselves up a little bit is that you need that, yo, bro, you want that 2 XP? I know you want that +2 in strength, man. You'll just make yourself a little bit dumber. I got you.
Yeah.
Now, if you, and going to the next one, if you caught me 8 or 9 years ago about Burning Wheel, I would have told you it was the greatest role-playing game system ever created. It has zero flaws, and that like anyone to say anything else otherwise, I would have just laughed in their face. Now, 9 years.
That
of playing,
opinion is tarnished somewhat, but for what we're talking about today, character creation, backstory, if the first character you ever make in Burning Wheel is like the biggest trip I've ever had in my years of roleplay. Like
he called me at 4:30 in the morning.
Jordan lent me his core book because he was so excited about Burning Wheel. I went home, started to read it, and then immediately made 3 characters that I knew I would never, ever be able to play and probably wouldn't be able to use as NPCs because hell no, I'm not running Burning Wheel.
That is my burden to bear.
But like, this is a system where you make a character, and if somebody says, where was your character 17 years ago, you have an answer on your character sheet. Like, it's wild. It's crazy. It kind of expands things.
Because the first part of it is, like, when you're building up your stats, getting your pool. It's called life paths. You get to pick, like, all right, this dude was born a peasant, he was a farmer, he became a mercenary, and then he fell into a cult.
And now he's a dwarven brewmaster. Good luck.
Right, or any sort of combination. It is somewhat limited in which you can really only make like Tolkien medieval high fantasy characters, but it is the best.
Also, don't go into Burning Wheel with a really fleshed out idea of what you want your character to be, because Luke Crane will give you the spiritual middle finger and laugh while you can't make your character because of his life path system's restrictions. But it's still really fun.
Yes. And then the other part of it, and kind of what I have stolen wholesale from the Burning Wheel system and kind of just made it into like pretty much any character I go to, because it's not necessarily system-wide that makes it important, is the ideas of beliefs and instincts and how those two things kind of fell into the I call it the carrot and stick of how to encourage role playing.
Yeah, you have a series of beliefs that your character believes in. You start with 3, correct?
Right. The idea is, what is this dude willing to fight for? What is he willing to
What
drop?
is the most important? What drives you? What motivates you? And in this game, there's not really experience points. You do level up your skills by using them, but by playing to your beliefs or getting in trouble from your instincts, which your instincts are like, if there's trouble, I draw my sword. Well, obviously that can help the player because whenever a fight breaks out, he has his weapon in his hand.
But say that you're in the king's court.
But you're in the king's court and somebody mouths off to you and you have to draw your sword. Now it can get you in trouble. So from your beliefs and from your instincts, you generate something called Artha. And Artha is like what drives your character progression. If you aren't role-playing, you don't get Artha. If you don't get Artha, you can have really high ranks in all of your important skills, but you will never be as good as someone who's been spending Artha on those skills. So this, like, as far as concepts like backstory and behavior and character interactions go, this system is like a master class in teaching people on how to do that stuff.
Like, if you want to fight, though, or like you want to cast magic, no es bueno.
Yeah.
But if you want to, like, talk about your feelings in the woods, or like, have a big debate over Elven Court about, like, what to do next, like that it is the best.
The answer is lament. If you're an elf in Burning Wheel, what to do next is answered with lament. Also, just in general, if any of you guys are like, Burning Wheel sounds interesting, but I would never want to play or run it, I would still recommend reading this core book because if you took out all of Luke Crane's musings about how to run a game better or play a game better, the book would be a quarter the size that it is. And it's literally filled with a lot of actual wisdom. And yes, it's where your character isn't real comes from. It kind of actually changed my opinions on things when I read that, as you might have guessed. So
right, and also just like the fact of beliefs and instincts and how he reads about them. Like, I have never gone to a how to create your character panel like ever again since reading this, because I'm like, because I walk in and go, oh, beliefs and instincts. That's about half the panel. So,
Yeah.
I think we blew up our spot. Shit. So, but like, to conclude on that point, like, I always suggest trying to go and play as many systems as you possibly can on that, just because it's going to give you ideas on how to, like, either what a character backstory is. Also, a lot of systems nowadays kind of hyper-focus on one type of setting. Like Worldwide Wrestling, perfect example. One of my favorite games, The Sprawl, really good into making like cyberpunk-only sorts of deals. If you, like, at session 0 kind of figure out the theme and what you want to go for, you're not like tied to any system to do it. You can use the best tool to make the best story that you want to tell.
Yeah.
There is a book out there for whatever you want to make. Don't play Fatal, though. Ooh. Is it Fatal? Yeah, it's Fatal. Okay, got it. Thank you. All right.
You shouldn't have even mentioned that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have even said that out loud. God almighty.
Now there is going to become a point in time where you kind of get through like all the prompts, but you're still coming up with like a blank slate on like, what do I even want to do with this guy? Or you're playing D&D, like we're not saying like don't play D&D or Pathfinder ever again. That is not what we're going
still
for.
Play it. It's fun. This is a book that I acquired because I was in a place I've really never been before. I started a game. And I played through several sessions, and I had no idea who my character was, how he talked, what motivated him. I just had this vague general idea of I wanted to play a sorcerer in 3.5 because I'm insane. And I thought to myself, I want to make a character who, like, he's leaning towards being evil, and unless, like, the magical friends, hero's journey stuff kicks in, he's going to end up like a psychopath living in a tower experimenting on people, which I think is a pretty rad concept, but it's also like doesn't answer any of the questions of like, what am I doing here? And that's never happened to me before because, like I said, I'm usually thirsty as hell when it comes time to actually not run a game. And so I got this book, and it was written by a guy who does a lot of improv acting. And so he took stuff from his improv classes that's just questions. And he asks a question, and he provides you with sample answers, and you can use them or you can not use them. And it's pretty fascinating because like one of the earliest things that he asks in this game is, what is a holiday from the town you were born in? And so I walked into this with like mild skepticism, but hope that it would save me from my quandary. And next thing I know, I had like 5 pages written about Wintermorn, the anniversary of the day that a starving traveler was turned away from my village and died in the cold, and with his dying breath put a curse on my village. And now, every year on the anniversary, everyone has to tell stories about hospitality, or else we get penalized in stats for the following year.
Ratchet. And it's not just that book. Like there is even
there's a lot of stuff like this out here. I just wanted to put it up there because like it worked for me.
Also, a system that is good for it, though it is more on the DM's onus to do the prompts. Dread is one of my favorite games of all time, and the character sheet is just a list of questions. Just like 10 to 12 questions, some of them pointed. So that's where the DM comes in, and it's a great way to just kickstart. Because like you can go 2 or 3 questions, like you have a whole backstory for your town off of one question.
Yeah.
What did you say the name of that one was?
Dread. Dread is an awesome RPG where the mechanics resolution is done exclusively through Jenga. Question?
I just wanted to ask, so you wrote this whole backstory around a holiday, right?
Yeah.
But my question is because I like to do this kind of character building as well.
Yeah.
But then when it comes time to actually play the game, how do you implement that in a way that's not...
Oh, so
we'll get there, buddy. We got you.
He actually addresses it in that prompt because the whole point is like, don't do any of this work if it's not going to come into play. The idea is you arbitrarily decide when the holiday is, and then when it comes around, you tell your party, and you're like, hey, this is something that I miss home, and this will make me feel comfortable. Do you guys want to participate in it? And also, like, the part of my GM rat brain that's really sadistic was like, man, I want to put my friends on the spot and ask them to improv a story, because they do that to me all the time.
We are 30% pettiness by volume.
Yeah. Lydia's running that game, so she was going to incorporate it as the GM. But there's a bunch of cool stuff in there, like some of it's even class specific. If you're playing a spellcaster, there are prompts and questions about like things that the GM would be totally okay with adding about your spell book, let's say, about it having a personality or it having a minor magical effect that has no mechanics input. So it just takes a part of your kit that usually just sits on your character sheet and does nothing. And it makes an interesting hook for your character.
So now after you kind of make the backstory, you get everything started. One thing, like we kind of mentioned it before with the flaws, but you got to leave some room for your character. Like it should never be fully baked.
Yeah.
First start.
Do not make a Mary Sue. You're allowed to make one for your first character, but just don't.
So cool. Makoto Shinkai
so
was so
perfect.
cool.
He's never failed a roll.
Ever.
I actually have a game of Modifius Conan that I'm running that one of the characters, she's never played in an RPG before, and she's very excited for the game, and she's very competitive, and she's an athlete. And the concept of failing a die roll is heinous to her. And so when she's actually away at school and playing remotely with us, she cheats like nobody I've ever seen before. Like the least observant person at the table walked up to me after like the second game session she played remotely and was like, "Do you think Sam is cheating?" I'm like, "What? Yes." I'm like, "Don't worry, I'll deal with it." Yeah, right.
All right. And on top of that, no, this is a bee in Corey's bonnet more than it is in my bonnet. Because as you can see, I'm sad by default.
So there's a difference between tragedy in your backstory and having a tragic backstory. And I actually really played with this idea with a recent character for That Guy's Podcast. I made a character.
Stop it. Stop it.
I made a character who he's a tiefling sorcerer, and it's 5th edition, and he's a charlatan. And the whole thing with this character was he grew up a perfectly happy, contented life, but he has this character flaw where he thinks no one will like him unless he's an edgelord. So his charlatan's alternate identity. First of all, I had to pick a female tiefling for his alternate identity because, like, if it was a guy, okay, all of a sudden there's 2 mysteriously similar-looking tieflings in town, and they're the only tieflings in town. So I thought maybe if his alternate identity was a woman, maybe I could get away with stuff. I don't know. I've gotten away with it so far. But, like, so his alternate identity picked the virtue named Sorrow because I'm an asshole, and she goes around ahead of Damokos and tells the story about how he has fallen aristocracy and his kingdom is destroyed and his family is ruined.
None of that's real.
And you'll never know how tragic this man's life is. And, like, I throw out quips like, well, that's the default one, but like I throw out stuff that like makes everybody at the table yell at me hatefully, and then I get inspiration for it.
It's pretty great.
In fact, I don't think there's been a session where I haven't gotten inspiration for saying something edgelord. But I did that because I've seen so many people like really feel like their past needs to be like these shackles that drag them down, and it's like, okay, like you realize at some point you're gonna fumble and look like a dumbass, right? Like you can't always be like this epic fantasy character who's like, oh, the tragedy is the only thing that drives me.
Because
I
D&D
have to gain vengeance, but it will be hollow and empty, and I know it. Like, you don't have to do that, so please don't always do that, because it sucks for your DM to try and weave moments for you into the story when your only motivation is sadness.
And to piggyback on the other two slides, it's a phrase "showing ass" that I got from pro wrestling. It is you are going to slip. The dice will inevitably do this to you. You're going to slip on a banana peel that will hit you on some roller skates that will roll you down the stairs into the dumpster. Like dumb shit, goofy shit happens in D&D that you cannot prevent. It's the dice will get you
The dice
at least
will
once.
shame you.
Now, I've calmed down a little bit more in my. I used to have a whole vitriolic rant about this stuff before. I brought Eddie Guerrero up for some goddamn reason.
You'd always be like, guys, steal shit.
And I still believe that, with all my heart. But there is going to be coming a point in time where you're just stuck. You just don't know what to do. You just either there's something part of like a backstory that you're just like you got a brain cramp on, and what have you. And just remember that we're playing pretend with our friends here, and this is inherently a power fantasy. So if you want to just steal from some shit from Han Solo and change the names, don't change it to Dash Rendar. That's also copyrighted. But like you can do that. No one's gonna give.
Disney will get you.
Yeah, Corey will give me shit for doing that, but I don't care what Corey thinks about me, so it's fine.
Actually, you're right. It's free now. But yeah, so like we always encourage you if one of my favorite things of stealing stuff for games is I will have like a game that I play or a book that I've read that I will say to my friends like going on years, you got to do this, you got to read this, you got to play it, you'll love it, it's so up your alley, it's not even funny. And they're like, yep. And sometimes they do and I get lucky, but sometimes they don't. So I've reached a point where it's like, okay, you get like 3 recommends, and then if you still haven't read it or played the game, I'm just going to steal my favorite parts of the plot and put it into my characters or put it into my game. So it works pretty well, and it also really helps if you are stuck on something in character creation, or and I know this is wild because all of us have so many free time. Maybe you don't have the free time to write all that backstory. So,
speaking of free time, now this is coming from. I understand that I have a different GM style than even from Corey or most other people, but I hate writing shit. It's the worst thing on planet Earth.
Oh my God! What was that? The note that you had?
You best believe the cult. Oh God, cult fuckboys are afoot. I know that was one. And you best believe the priests will be in there with their faith N apostrophe shit. Like I'm bad at this.
This
I don't
is
know
what-
what that meant.
This is his campaign journal. This is what it looks like. I've seen
and
it.
there's like 5 lines of blankness between like that and like the next thing I wrote.
He will leave his stuff. We play at my house, so he will leave his stuff at my house, and so I'll be putting stuff in a folder so I don't lose it, and there'll just be a loose leaf piece of printer paper that is like ripped in half and stained with spilled soda or something, and that's his campaign journal. So, and you know what? He runs great games, so I don't complain about it.
Right. So what I say that to say, I roll with you, a pretty like veteran crew, and so they just give me shit all the time. Like I will say multiple sessions, this is so easy. DMing's the easiest thing ever because you just gotta and obviously it's hyperbolic, obviously,
Yeah.
but
no, I mean we were having some RP in his Viking game, and like my character has a relationship that I spent points on, so it has to come up and play. And she's a summoner, and she lays the dead to rest, so she has relationship with the ghost of a fallen hero, and the hero started acting really weird.
The first thing he did was in session 1, he turns to him and goes, "You're my best friend," and I was like, "Yes,
Yeah,
good."
I said to the ghost. Yeah, I said to the ghost, "You're my best friend," and I knew as I said it what was gonna happen, but like I didn't care. And so, yeah, it started acting weird. It showed up without me summoning it. It started asking me pointed questions that I didn't like. And I turned to Jordan, and this one was a slip up, and I said, "Oh shit, there's another summoner."
I got mad tight.
And then as soon as I said that, I was like, well, if there wasn't before, there is now.
So, and that kind of got, that got him all in on the game. And the other thing that you should be doing as the DM is forcing where the meat of this character creation and character development goes is having hard choices that they got to make. And as the DM, you got to enforce those hard choices on people.
This is another thing that we mentioned, Burning Wheel, the concept of the beliefs and instincts. Like, if you feel like you need more experience in learning how to force the characters to make difficult choices, like, that's the way. I mean, it's literally part of the mechanics of the game. And once you've done it a few times, it'll come natural to you in whatever system you want to play. But yeah, it's definitely, that's how your characters continue to change and grow over the campaign. That's how you, the player, learn about your characters, and you're surprised and excited, and you keep wanting to go back to the table. And thank God, I don't have like a fighter that only trips people. You know what I mean? Like,
Don't talk to me about the trip monk. I'm still mad at my friend Mikey for making the trip monk. It was bullshit. Now, on the flip side, what can you do to help the GM? Because it's a symbiotic relationship. Is that symbiotic? Whatever. Yes, symbiotic relationship.
So I recently did a session 0 for the Conan game I'm going to be running on the podcast, and one of the players was like not invested in the process. And after we were done, I kind of was like, "Oh man, are you feeling all right? You seem like you weren't there." "Oh yeah, I'm not really into that stuff. I like it better if the story, just what happens and I can react to it." And I've known this guy for more than 10 years. He doesn't like to make a nuisance of himself. He likes to not cause me trouble. So he was very kindly stepping out of my way so that he could give me more work to do, and I really appreciate that.
And having said that, it is I don't think there should be an edict of you need 3 pages double spaced for your character concept by Tuesday. We're not saying that.
I would never do that. What most of what I'm getting at with this is talk to your GM about your character. Talk to your GM about what you liked. Like we do a post-session wrap a lot of times. What did you like from this session? What do you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of? Talk to them about your character. Like, if you're in one of my games and you want to text me while I'm at work, as soon as I'm not running power equipment, I will gladly answer you. It's really more of help me help you, and also don't expect me to remember minor plot points of your backstory when I have 4 other players at the table and an entire universe to run. So
And like bills to pay.
so like help me if I drop a plot point that has an impact on your character, let me know. Let the table know. Start some dialogue. RP. Don't just be like, oh well, you forgot to mention how like my family got killed by a shambling mound, and then you threw the shambling mound in, and nobody realized how upset I was. Okay.
Some real shit. And the other thing is that, you know, Corey was kind of mentioning it before with the person who cheats in his Conan game. Of like, you know,
I've gotten her so good.
there is no winning in D&D,
Yeah.
right? Like the other part where you can do to help is making like big risky decisions to try and move the plot forward. I've gotten to the point with some crews there, it's just they're so afraid of losing that they're just going to turtle up and do the most boring, efficient run through. All options are covered. They've power gamed each of their outside of session 0, all like huddled up together to make their characters and do the math out to cover all possible options I could come out with them without obviously cheating to fuck them over. Like and just try and go through the game and win the most boring way possible. And I don't think there's even D&D is not about that.
Yeah.
Like,
well, if you are playing D&D, there's literally no reason not to take risks, because out of all the systems I play, I think D&D is the only one where character death is not permanent. Like getting a true resurrection is only some gold pieces away. Like, it's not a big deal. And that being said, like, if you have players who've only played D&D and you're introducing them to new systems, you can really expect them to get cautious when all of a sudden they're playing a game where death is permanent. But like,
a lot of those systems kind of
ideally, eventually they'll start acting like heroes and
eventually
be brazen.
Also, a lot of those other systems have incentives for people to try and role play.
Yeah.
There will be even in Dungeon World, powered by the apocalypse, even through failure, you can get the juice to upgrade your character and level up.
A lot of systems use a concept that I really like that can also help with this idea of maybe failure would be a real hitch for my character, or something would go wrong. Like, you can always, as the DM, have the success at a cost option. They fail a dice roll for something really important.
They fail lockpick.
They can still succeed at the check, but something just goes wrong at the same time.
So they unlock the door, but the guards show up right away.
Yeah.
Now, this is where I feel like the real juice is mostly for the RPGs I run, is when the characters get to talk to one another and get to interact with one another, and sometimes come into conflict with one another. And it has made some of the best moments in games that I've run, and it has also come close to ending some friendships that I've had. So first and foremost, in session 0 or wherever before you start the game, you gotta set some ground rules of what the rules of engagement are with people.
Yeah, and when he made the joke about talking about your feelings in the woods, that was a real thing that happened in the game. Zoob over there, who's a cantankerous asshole, admitted that he liked somebody and wanted to help them, and we all popped off. And they've been feuding the whole game. They hate each other's guts.
We popped off like we won the Super Bowl. We're like, holy shit, this is great! Yeah! Feelings.
It's an immaculate, frail flower. You don't understand her.
Some of the best moments we've ever had have been stuff like that, where our characters just talk about why we're upset about what's going on in the game. And so this can be huge. One of my biggest things that I like to establish is that in-character beefs should be supported by out-of-character thoughts. Like, if two characters are getting into an argument, it should be because both players are into that. Like, if you're rolling up on the shy guy RPer in your group and you're just berating him and bullying him, that's not so great. But if Jordan and I are in a game and wouldn't it be great if our characters just got into a vicious knockdown, drag out fight? That's when everybody walks away feeling fulfilled by what just happened.
It was a bummer because we talked for 2 days about this fight because his character was about to kill a child, and I was not about that life. And we had copious notes written down, everything. Tragically, I live 2
So-
hours away and that never happened.
So,
and the
so,
game died.
so out of context, that sounds really weird, Jordan. But it was a Legend of the Five Rings game, and I was a Lion Clan samurai who are bound by honor in their lord's command. And the rules are in Rokugan: if you are not samurai and if you touch a katana, it's the death penalty. And so I had this child protege, and I found out that he had he had a wakizashi that came to him down through his parents who were dead. And like I found this out, and I, who had the highest honor rating possible in the game, had to be like, oh, what do I do? So I was immediately like, we need to prove that his parents owned this legally so I don't have to kill him.
And
Jordan was like, his character was really fatigued with the samurai rules and the samurai lifestyle.
I'm like, if you kill this kid, we're going to have some capital P problems.
And it was going to end probably in one of our deaths, I imagine.
But we were ready for it.
I fully intended, like, if I got the order that I didn't want to get, I was going to join the Death Seekers, which is a suicide squad where you just run out into hell and fight till you die. But
it can go bad. Like I have had.
It can get pretty ugly, yeah.
Right, and so like just remember that there's rules of engagement. Everyone should be on the same page. Even people that are outside of like the two characters interacting, if they don't know like people are willing to let shit get heavy, they might get pretty defensive. Like it happened where my friend Chris and my friend Dylan got into it in the RP, and I could tell because I know these guys really well. Like, oh, this is just them, doing D&D stuff. They're like secretly enjoying it. Chris's girlfriend did not know Dylan that well, and Dylan is pretty good at being convincing and angry, so she was like, why is this dude yelling at my boyfriend, calling him useless, and got pretty tight about it. So just make sure that everyone's on the same level.
Yeah.
Oh man, we're good at timing.
We're running it real close this
Okay.
time. So when is the last time you guys were in a game that actually came to a written logical conclusion?
Whoa. That's wild.
That makes me really happy that I'm seeing hands go up. How many of you have also been in, like, probably 5 times as many games that end because of a scheduling conflict? Or yeah, okay, that's okay. About more than what I expected. So there's.
Oh, I've been there. I've been there, bro.
I've been there too. There's a lot of people throw the term story arc around to describe a segment of a story. In the original literary connotations of a story arc, it's an arc because there's a beginning and there's an end. And usually the character has something in their life referred to as the dramatic question. It's the impetus for their journey. And what happens is they have a belief, they have a feeling, they have something that motivates them at the beginning of the arc, and at the end of the arc, their outlook on life has completely changed. And not all narratives need to follow that, and obviously, like, a role-playing game has a lot more than one hero in it. But the point is like, if your goal is to kill the king, what's left when you kill the king? If you have put the kind of time and energy and effort into building a character, building a backstory, building what drives, motivations, beliefs, you've run through this epic campaign, it's going to reach its natural conclusion, and it should be bittersweet, but it should also be like a really awesome thing.
Also, like, leveling for epic levels is garbage, and I hate it. And so, like,
you now have to fight 5 Tarasks.
So, this is the part where we shamelessly pimp our shit. So, we actually... Now, here's the thing. If you listen to this podcast, everything that we've talked about would be thrown out the window because we're the dumbest motherfuckers on planet Earth. So just keep that in mind.
The games that we play on... Yes. The games that we play on the podcast are more for stupidity and entertainment, and oh boy do we check that stupidity box as hard as we can.
So if you
want to know about my edgelord tiefling... Listen, and I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry.
So you can find that on Spotify or pretty much wherever you can get your podcasts, except for, I think, SoundCloud?
It's Anchor, right?
Anchor
FM.
All that stuff.
Anchor.fm/The Broken Lords, one word.
Yeah, anybody has questions or comments? We have a little bit of time left.
What's up?
Like a question, and then more like what do you guys think about this type of thing?
Got it.
So for the question, going back to your Session Zero talk, Are you guys a fan?
Oh, also, thank you guys so
Yeah.
much for the music. Thank you so much for
Thanks.
coming. Thank you. Oh, like, holy shit. Thank you so much.
Are you guys fans of like the idea of like more cooperative character bios for like session 0?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
love that. Yeah.
My second question is like, do you think this is like a good idea or a toxic idea? Like what we kind of started doing with like my group is every week because we all are GMs, so we all like rotate every week, like who's running.
That's a good problem to have.
It is. We started like kind of like voting on like the GMs don't vote, but like the players vote like who is MVP for that game and why.
No, that's good. That's also a thing that's encouraged in a lot of systems. Burning Wheel highly recommends that after every game session, the GM awards Artha to the players, and then you go around and ask the players, who do you think deserves Artha for their RP today? So that concept is really great. So yeah, I mean, if people are feeling slighted or whatever, I would recommend you do it more in that format of ask everybody individually, who did you think was good today? Yeah.
Like who do you think and why? And then like D&D.
Yeah, because there doesn't need to be an MVP, but
We call it that because we have a better.
Sure.
yeah. All right.
What's up, bro?
So we mostly play GURPS.
Okay.
It's a really fun system, but something I've noticed is a problem is, especially in the higher point totals, making a character can take a long time because of all the math involved.
Yeah.
So when something like that happens, do you have anything that like makes it more streamlined?
I'm not going to lie to you, bro. We don't play those kinds of systems because of that.
Well, no, I mean I do, but
Okay.
like
I don't.
What I usually say, like if I try out a new system and character creation is fast and slick, I'm going to play that system more than I play other systems. That's just what it is. I mean, like I started playing White Wolf shortly after L5R, shortly after D&D, and like every system I've loved, character creation has gotten a little bit faster. If you have a little bit of burnout on that and you want to have a game that's really epic and has like unbelievably fast character creation, pick an apocalypse game. I know we keep telling you guys this, but yeah, if you like the D&D, it's got a version for every setting. And literally,
And they're like $10.
there are
Like,
a bunch
they're
of
bad cheap.
there are a bunch of archetype character sheets that you hand out. People pick the sheet they want, they check a few boxes, and character creation is done.
But
and you can
still
have
play it
awesome
at the high,
games.
like epic level that you want to,
Yeah.
while still being kind of simplified.
But if you really want to stick within GURPS, I mean,
I've been using Savage Worlds actually for that. It is like the most pared down you can make GURPS. There is still a shit ton of tables. Like you're not gonna get away from that. But it is pared down enough that like a normal like regular human being would be able to look at that and be like, yeah, I can kind of get this. All right.
Just a tail on that. Is it possible there's an internet spreadsheet tool out there?
yeah, probably.
And I don't like living in spreadsheets, but I do.
All right.
Sure.
But
Question?
One more for you.
Just more about a real quick story.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the last one.
Making choices for your characters and whatnot.
Okay.
Well, this is my first D&D character I ever played in film as a wizard. And we went through this dungeon and we found a book. Well, the book is basically the Necronomicon. And we all have bags on holding. And we are worried that the people are going to start coming for us. So, tell me, get the book. What do you do with the book? The bard is like, the bag is fine. We gotta go, put it in the bag. Okay, put it in the bag. And everything from there has been downhill with Element. He's been like having visions and the trees of forming started talking to him.
Oh, man.
It's like,
Book I am.
That kind of stuff is really cool. What I like
It's really good, yeah. It's way more interesting than I am fighter, I insert S word.
Yeah. So I had a game like, fucked up. But it's D&D. It's fun. It should happen.
Yeah.
Now we're done. Now
Yeah.
Corey, your watch is ended. You're done for MAGFest. Zoo, can you stand up for me? I'm not done, and he's not done. Tomorrow at Panel Rooms 4, 10 a.m. We're gonna teach you something. I'm sorry, 10 p.m. You're right. Sorry about 10 p.m. not a.m. Holy shit. 10 p.m. We're gonna learn you something about fighting games if you want to. Ballad of the Basement King. How to stop going 0-2. Ooh. Please, if you are interested at all, we'd love to see you.
Yep.
But thank you guys so much for coming.
a lot.
It seriously warms my heart every year.
If you